My name is Ashley Carter, and before everything shattered, people in my town knew me as the woman who never quit. I wasn't famous. I wasn't rich. I was just consistent. Every morning at 4:30 a.m., I unlocked the doors of my gym in suburban Ohio, wiped down machines myself, and reminded anyone who walked in that discipline could change a life, because it changed mine. Fitness saved me. After a messy childhood and years of feeling invisible, the gym gave me control. I earned certifications, worked double shifts, slept on a friend's couch, and slowly built something real. Brick by brick, rep by rep. When I finally opened Iron Haven Fitness, it wasn't just a business. It was proof that I'd survived. On the day everything went wrong, the gym was alive. Music thumping, plates clanging, sweat in the air. I was coaching a young woman through her first deadlift, smiling as she stood tall with the barbell shaking in her hands. That moment, seeing confidence spark in someone's eyes, was why I did this. Then the music cut off. The front doors slammed open so hard they rattled the windows. I turned, confused, still mid-sentence when I saw them. 6 police officers flooding in, hands on weapons, voices sharp and loud. Ashley Carter, step away from the equipment. For a second, I thought it was a joke, a drill, anything but real life. My clients froze. Someone dropped a dumbbell. Another person screamed. My heart slammed so hard against my ribs it hurt. "I'm Ashley," I said slowly, raising my hands. "What's going on?" No one answered me. 2 officers moved fast, separating me from my client like I was dangerous. One pushed me toward the wall. Cold metal touched my wrists. Handcuffs. In my own gym. I remember the sound most, the clicking, final, unforgiving. I remember the way people stared at me, phones already raised, whispers spreading faster than the truth ever could. I remember thinking, this can't be happening. I didn't do anything. They said there was an investigation. They said there had been a tip. They didn't say who. They didn't need to. The way they searched my office, tore through storage, dumped supplement containers onto the floor, it felt like they already believed I was guilty. As they walked me past the mirrors lining the gym, I caught my reflection. Mascara smudged, jaw clenched, muscles tense but useless. I looked strong, but I'd never felt so powerless. I kept replaying my life in my head, searching for mistakes. Taxes, clean, licenses, updated, supplements, legal. I had built everything by the book because I knew how fast people judged women who succeeded too loudly. Outside, red and blue lights painted my gym in colors that didn't belong there. A reporter van pulled up. My stomach dropped. This wasn't staying local. This was becoming a story. As they put me in the back of the cruiser, one thought screamed louder than the sirens. Someone wanted this to happen. This wasn't random. It was too detailed, too precise. Whoever made that call knew my schedule, knew my business, knew exactly how to hurt me where it would hurt the most publicly. I didn't know yet that the person who lit the match shared my last name. But as the car pulled away and Iron Haven disappeared from view, one truth settled deep in my chest. My life hadn't fallen apart by accident. The holding cell smelled like bleach and fear. I sat on the hard bench, wrists still stinging from the cuffs, heart pounding so loudly I thought the other inmates could hear it. My mind refused to process what had just happened. My gym, my sanctuary, had been stormed. My clients, my friends, the people who believed in me, had watched the scene unfold as if I were a criminal. And for what? Hours earlier, I had been teaching a new client how to squat properly, reminding her to keep her chest up. She laughed when she almost dropped the bar. That moment, that laugh, now seemed like it belonged to someone else's life. My world had been ripped from me in a way I didn't even know was possible. At the station, the officers who had cuffed me barely looked at me. One slid a folder across the table, flipping it open with a thud. I leaned over, my stomach twisting as I read the first words. Allegations, accusations, crimes I had never even thought about committing. Drugs, money laundering, illegal supplements. My name was printed in black and white, tied to a web of lies I couldn't understand. I don't do any of this," I said, my voice trembling. "You'll have your chance," said the detective, eyes cold but calculating. "For now, we need you to answer questions." I glanced around the room. The flickering fluorescent lights only made the walls feel smaller, the ceiling lower, as if the building itself was pressing down on me. I wanted to shout, to scream, to prove it was a mistake. But there was no one to hear me except the officers, and their expressionless faces made me feel invisible. And then I noticed something in the folder, details only someone incredibly close to me could have known. My weekly schedule, the layout of my office, my security system codes. This wasn't just a tip from a stranger. This was someone who knew me, someone who had planned this. I shook my head. Who would do this? The detective leaned back, folding his arms. Anonymous tip, but it's detailed. Someone wanted this to happen. Anonymous? I didn't believe it. Not for a second. There was only one person I could think of who had access to so much information. My sister, Megan. My stomach sank at the thought. Megan had always been jealous of me. She had complained that my success made her look small. She had mocked my discipline, my work ethic, even my friends. But I had never imagined she would go this far. As I sat in that cell, panic twisted into a new emotion, rage. I wasn't going to sit here and take this. My life, my business, my reputation, everything I had built was on the line, and someone I had once trusted had lit the fuse. The hours dragged. Police questioned me, each interrogation cutting deeper than the last. They asked about transactions I never made, people I never met. Every time I denied something, they scribbled notes, frowning, unconvinced. I felt like the world had turned upside down. My innocence was invisible. And outside, my gym, the place that had been my life's work, was still being treated like a crime scene. I imagined my clients huddled together, whispering, filming, speculating. My heart ached thinking about their confusion, their fear. Some of them had been with me for years, trusting me to guide them, to protect them in more ways than one. Now I was the danger in their eyes. By the time I was released on my own recognizance, the damage was already done. Media coverage had begun. Social media rumors were spreading faster than I could keep track of. My reputation was under siege, my life exposed. But I refused to cry. Not yet. I refused to break. Because I knew one thing with certainty, this wasn't the end, not for me. Someone had started this war, and I was about to find out exactly who and how far they were willing to go. The day I discovered who was behind it felt like my entire world tilted sideways. I was back home, packing the small apartment I had moved into after years of putting every dollar into the gym, when the detective called. His voice was calm, but there was an edge I couldn't ignore. "Ashley," he said, "we traced some of the information in the tip. Who is Megan Carter?" Megan, my older sister. My blood. The one person I never thought could hurt me this way. My stomach dropped into my shoes, twisting like a roller coaster I hadn't signed up for. "Megan, she wouldn't, she can't." My voice broke halfway. "I'm afraid the details in the tip could only have come from someone very close to you. And now, the evidence is pointing in her direction." I sank into the couch, trembling, heart racing. The walls seemed to close in, and I could hear the echo of my own thoughts. Megan, my sister, how could she? Memories I had buried for years began flooding back. Megan had always been different. Competitive, yes, but also sharp, cunning. When I opened the gym, she congratulated me in public, but her eyes always had a flicker of resentment. I had brushed it off. Sisters argued all the time. I never imagined her envy could turn into calculated sabotage. I remembered the small comments over the years, how she would casually drop into conversations things only someone who lived with me would know. "Oh, Ashley, do you really think people will come to your little gym?" Or, "I don't see why you're so obsessed with this fitness thing. It's not like it's going to make you rich." At the time, I laughed it off. It seemed like harmless teasing. Now, every word replayed in my head like a sinister prophecy. I realized she had known my schedule, my clients, my suppliers, even the codes to my office. She had waited for the perfect moment to strike, and then she had executed her plan with surgical precision. My reputation destroyed, my business threatened, my life thrown into chaos, all because of her. The betrayal stung more than anything else. Family is supposed to protect you, to have your back. And yet, the person who should have been my ally, my sister, had become my enemy. Worse, She had done it silently, carefully, making sure no one suspected her until it was too late. I sat there for a long time, staring at my hands, trying to process. Tears burned my eyes, but they weren't enough to wash away the rage building inside me. This wasn't just a personal attack, it was a war. A calculated, deliberate war by someone who knew me better than anyone else in the world. That night, I didn't sleep. I started making a list. Every conversation she had had with me over the past year that seemed off. Every time she had asked too many questions about the gym or my finances. Every time she had tried to undermine me with passive comments. It was all a map, a trail of breadcrumbs I could follow. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't just sit back and wait for the police or the media to clear my name. I needed proof, concrete proof, that Megan had lied, that she had built a web of deception around me to destroy my life. And I swore to myself, right there on that couch, that I wouldn't stop until the world knew the truth. My gym, my clients, my career, my life, everything she had tried to take from me, I would take back. But first, I needed patience. Patience to follow the trail. Patience to watch her slip. Patience to strike at exactly the right moment. Megan Carter had underestimated me, and I intended to make sure she never did again. I never truly understood Megan until that night. Sitting alone, scrolling through old messages, looking at every conversation I'd had with her over the past year, I started to see the pattern. The jealousy, the lies, the quiet, simmering rage that had been building in her long before she destroyed my life. Megan had always been loud, demanding attention, the type of person who needed the spotlight. I, on the other hand, had learned to work quietly, to let actions speak louder than words. I had always thought that would protect me, that hard work and honesty would make my life untouchable. But Megan had waited. She had watched. She had plotted. I remembered the early days of my gym, when she'd come to support me. She'd smile, take selfies in front of the weight racks, and post them on social media, praising my success. But behind the scenes, I knew she had been critical. A friend had once mentioned that Megan would complain about me constantly, comparing herself to me and pointing out how I was always lucky or favored. I brushed it off, telling myself family sometimes complains. But the truth was far worse. When I went through her messages, I saw it clearly. Months of conversations where she mocked my progress, joked about teaching Ashley a lesson, and even hinted at ways to ruin me. There were posts she had shared privately, screenshots of my emails, pictures of my gym, messages to friends where she called me pretentious and undeserving. She had spent months cultivating this lie, feeding it to the police with such precision that it almost worked. And then it hit me, the tipping point. The moment she had decided to act wasn't random. I remembered a conversation from last Christmas. I had proudly shown her the media coverage for the gym's charity event. She had smiled, nodded, and then said, almost casually, "It's cute how much you think people care about you, Ashley. They'll get bored of you soon." At the time, I laughed it off, thinking she was just teasing. Now, that was a warning. Megan's envy wasn't just about the gym. It was about me, my independence, my discipline, my achievements. Everything she had failed to build in her own life, she resented in mine. And she had quietly nurtured a plan that could erase it all in a single move. As the pieces fell into place, I felt a mix of sorrow and rage. Sorrow because my own sister had betrayed me. Rage because she thought she could outsmart me. She didn't understand me. She underestimated the very thing she envied. My resilience, my patience, my unwillingness to break. I realized that understanding her envy was crucial. To fight back, I couldn't just rely on evidence. I had to anticipate her next move. I had to study her patterns, predict her lies, and use her own arrogance against her. For years, she had tried to manipulate the world into seeing me as weak. I was about to show her how wrong she was. That night, I made a decision. I wouldn't let Megan's envy dictate my life any longer. I wouldn't just clear my name. I would rebuild, stronger than before. And when the truth finally came out, the world would see her for who she really was. I opened my laptop and started documenting everything. Every suspicious message, every moment she had gloated about my failures. I printed screenshots, saved emails, created a timeline. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming control over my life and proving that deceit and envy could never win against persistence and truth. Megan Carter had underestimated me for the last time. After the police raid, everything I had built seemed to collapse overnight. I returned to my gym, hoping to salvage what I could, only to find it nearly empty. Clients who had trusted me for years were hesitant, scared by what they'd seen online. Some had already canceled memberships, worried about associating with someone accused, even falsely, of criminal activity. The buzz on social media was relentless. Headlines painted me as a criminal. Rumors spread faster than I could respond. People I considered friends questioned my integrity. Sitting in the empty gym, surrounded by the equipment I had bought with every penny I earned, I felt a wave of despair I had never experienced before. The smell of sweat and disinfectant, once comforting, now felt suffocating. Every dumbbell, every treadmill, every poster of motivational quotes mocked me. I had built this place to be a haven for others, and now it was a stage for my humiliation. Sponsors pulled out immediately. My partnerships, carefully cultivated over years, vanished in hours. Contracts were terminated, promotional deals canceled, my name scrubbed from local fitness boards. I had worked tirelessly to create a brand I could be proud of, and in one swoop, it seemed irreparably damaged. The bills didn't stop. Rent, payroll, utilities, all still due, all still demanding attention while my income evaporated. My financial cushion was gone. I had no choice but to dig into personal savings, which barely covered my own rent. Every day became a juggling act of damage control, a battle to keep the lights on while feeling like my life was slipping through my fingers. Worst of all, Megan didn't reach out. No call, no apology, no sign of guilt. She had orchestrated this, and she watched from a distance while I fell. That thought alone, her cold, calculated pleasure, fueled an anger I had never known I could feel. Every betrayal, every slight, every jealous remark from the past came rushing back. She had been waiting for this moment for years, and now she was witnessing my lowest point. Yet amid the despair, something began to shift. Anger sparked a fire in me that grief and fear could not extinguish. I realized that crying or begging the world to believe me wouldn't solve anything. I needed evidence. I needed proof. I needed a way to show everyone that Megan had lied. And I needed patience, because the truth would take time to unravel, but it would hit harder than any headline. I started documenting everything. Every call, every suspicious interaction, every trace of the false tip. I retraced my steps, reviewing security footage, revisiting messages, piecing together the timeline. Every clue I uncovered was a weapon. Slowly, methodically, I began building the case that would not only clear my name but expose Megan's deception. Emotionally, I was raw. Every time I looked at the empty gym, every echoing clang of a machine, I felt a combination of grief and determination. The world might have believed Megan's lies, but I knew the truth. And if I had to rebuild my life from scratch, I would. Not as the victim, but as the survivor who refused to be destroyed. I cried less, focused more. I spent long nights planning and strategizing. I couldn't let Megan see me falter, not mentally, not emotionally. She had started a war, and I had no choice but to fight back. My revenge wouldn't be reckless or violent. It would be precise, surgical, and inevitable. As the days passed, the anger that had once felt destructive transformed into clarity. I wasn't just fighting to survive. I was fighting to reclaim everything that was mine. My business, my reputation, my dignity. Megan had lit the match, but I would control the fire. And deep down, I knew one truth. Patience was my greatest weapon. Megan had acted quickly, impulsively, thinking she had won. But I had time on my side. And when the world finally saw her for who she truly was, she would understand that the sister she tried to destroy had become stronger, smarter, and unstoppable. After weeks of feeling crushed under the weight of Megan's lies, I realized something. I had the upper hand if I knew where to look. The police investigation was ongoing, but I couldn't wait for them to untangle the truth at their pace. I needed to act, carefully, methodically, strategically. I started by revisiting the folder the detective had given me, the documents, screenshots, and evidence of the tip that had nearly destroyed my life. I studied every detail, every timestamp, every claim. Something didn't add up. Certain messages supposedly sent anonymously traced back to private accounts only someone close to me could access. Someone who knew my schedule, my clients, even the combination to my office safe. I remembered conversations I had with Megan over the past year. Little slips, odd questions, jokes about my perfect life that had always felt slightly off. I began connecting dots I had ignored before. Each thread of suspicion started forming a map of her deceit. She had been careful, meticulous, even clever, but she had underestimated me. I created a folder on my laptop titled Evidence Megan and began logging everything. Screenshots, emails, timestamps, financial discrepancies, and subtle inconsistencies in her statements. Every lie, every boastful comment she made to friends about teaching me a lesson, every text she sent that hinted at jealousy, it all became ammunition. Then I dug deeper. I monitored online activity connected to the tip. A fake email address used to send anonymous information, traced back to one of her old accounts. Messages deleted from her phone, recovered through backups. It was like unraveling a tapestry, one thread pulled, and the entire web started to unravel. Emotionally, I oscillated between rage and calm. Every time I uncovered another piece of proof, I felt vindicated, but I forced myself to stay patient. Megan's downfall wouldn't come from a quick accusation. It had to be undeniable, concrete, legal, public. And for that, I had to wait until I had a mountain of evidence she couldn't dispute. I also began quietly speaking to people Megan had confided in. Friends, coworkers, even distant relatives. Every conversation revealed patterns, bragging about how she set me up, subtle hints of satisfaction at my humiliation, statements she thought would remain secret. Each one was another link in the chain I was building. Meanwhile, I returned to the gym. Slowly, carefully, I reopened classes, reached out to loyal clients, and let my presence speak louder than social media rumors. Every time someone doubted me, I responded with calm professionalism, not anger. I knew that when the truth came out, the contrast between my composure and Megan's recklessness would be striking. As weeks turned into months, I began seeing cracks in her confidence. The detective called me for follow-ups. The police reopened lines of inquiry. Megan started panicking, making mistakes she never would have made if she were careful. Every call she left unchecked, every lie repeated, was another piece of evidence for my growing dossier. The most satisfying part wasn't the anger anymore. It was the strategy. I wasn't just surviving, I was gaining control. I wasn't reacting impulsively. I was orchestrating her exposure like a chess game. Every move she made to cover her tracks only confirmed my suspicions and strengthened my case. By the time I finally presented my findings to the detective, I had everything: emails, screenshots, timestamps, witness statements. It was airtight. Megan had no escape. Her lies had been clever, but they weren't perfect. And I had spent months ensuring that every flaw was documented, ready to prove that she had not only lied but had done so deliberately to destroy me. As I handed over the final folder, I felt a quiet satisfaction. The fire inside me had shifted from anger to control. Megan thought she had broken me, but now, with patience, focus, and relentless determination, I held all the power. And the countdown to her reckoning had begun. The day I finally faced Megan felt surreal, almost cinematic. I wasn't nervous. I was calm, controlled, and prepared. Months of planning, research, and quiet observation had led to this moment. I knew her tactics, her patterns, her pride, and her desperation. She thought she had destroyed me. She thought I was broken. She was wrong. The meeting was arranged through my attorney. A neutral office, legal witnesses present, cameras rolling for accountability. Megan walked in with that familiar smirk, the one I had hated for years, the smugness of someone who believed they were untouchable. But her confidence wavered the moment she saw the folder on the table, thick and neatly organized, every page a record of her deception. "Ashley," she said, voice dripping with fake warmth. I didn't mean." I held up my hand. "Save it, Megan. You know exactly why we're here." For a long moment, she said nothing. I could see the gears turning in her mind, trying to anticipate what I would do. But I had anticipated every move, every excuse, every weak denial. I laid out everything. Each lie she had told, each fake tip she had sent to the police, every boastful message where she admitted to her plan. I went through timelines, emails, screenshots, witness statements. I calmly walked her through the months of sabotage, showing her the careful construction of her deceit and how I had methodically uncovered it. Her smirk faltered. Her eyes flicked to the documents, then to the attorney, then back at me. Every defensive posture she had practiced over the years crumbled. I watched her try to recover, to deny, to gaslight me, but it was futile. The evidence was overwhelming. "You really think you can destroy me?" I said softly, letting the weight of my words hang in the room. "You tried, and you almost succeeded, but I wasn't fooled. I've spent months tracking every move, every message, every lie, and now the truth is in the hands of the law." Megan's face changed then: panic, fear, desperation. She realized her lies were no longer shields but chains, binding her to the consequences she had never imagined. I could see her thoughts racing. How did she miss that email? That timestamp? That backup? How could Ashley, the quiet one, be smarter than her? I did," she stammered, voice cracking. "I just wanted to scare you." "Scare me," I repeated. "You tried to ruin my life, my business, my reputation, and you thought you could get away with it." Legal proceedings were quick once I handed everything to the authorities. Megan's lies unraveled under interrogation. Contradictions piled up. Evidence that she thought was hidden for months was now irrefutable. Witnesses confirmed the boasts she had made to friends, the private messages she had sent, the smug satisfaction she had taken in watching me suffer. By the end of the week, the detective called me. "Megan Carter has admitted to filing false reports and defaming you. She's facing charges, and your case has been cleared. The public record now reflects the truth." I hung up and took a deep breath. Relief, yes. Satisfaction, definitely. But the strongest feeling was a quiet, unshakable sense of power. I had endured betrayal, humiliation, and near destruction, and emerged stronger. Later, I watched Megan leave the building under legal supervision. No one cheered. No one laughed. I didn't need them to. Her face said it all: panic, shame, and the bitter taste of realizing she had underestimated me. I returned to my gym that evening, lights low, doors locked, silence surrounding me. The clang of dumbbells, the hum of treadmills, the faint smell of sweat, it all felt different. Not empty, not abandoned, but mine, my sanctuary, my fortress. I had been betrayed by someone I loved. I had almost lost everything. But now, standing in the quiet aftermath, I knew something else. I had won. Not with anger, not with violence, not with rash revenge. I had won with truth, patience, and relentless focus. And Megan would remember this for the rest of her life. The day I reopened my gym felt like reclaiming a kingdom I'd been forced to leave. Iron Haven Fitness had been empty for months, the echoes of Megan's lies still lingering in every corner, but now the air smelled different, clean, fresh, and charged with possibility. I walked through the doors, ran my fingers along the machines, and felt a surge of ownership I hadn't felt in a long time. This was my life, my work, my sanctuary. And no one, not even my own sister, could take it from me again. The community I had built over years slowly returned. Clients came back, some hesitant at first, glancing nervously over their shoulders as if fearing another raid. But when they saw me standing behind the front desk, calm, composed, smiling, their trust returned. I didn't need to explain every detail. The truth was already out. Megan's lies had collapsed, and the evidence had cleared my name. People believed me because they saw me. I hadn't just survived, I had emerged stronger. Megan's legal troubles continued quietly in the background, but I refused to waste mental energy on her. Revenge, I realized, wasn't about watching her suffer. It wasn't about gloating or public humiliation. True revenge was living well, reclaiming every part of the life she tried to destroy, and proving, day after day, that lies and envy could never break someone with determination and patience. I threw myself into the gym. New classes, better equipment, community events. I shared my story in interviews, not for pity, but for inspiration. I wanted others to see that betrayal, false accusations, and envy could be overcome. Every time a new member joined, every time someone told me how much my guidance had changed their life, I felt a quiet triumph. My revenge wasn't loud. It was subtle, powerful, and absolute. I also rebuilt my personal life. Friends who had stood by me were closer than ever. I learned to trust carefully, yes, but to love freely. I took vacations I had postponed, invested in new projects, and for the first time in years, I slept without dread gnawing at my mind. The shadow Megan had cast over me was gone. She had underestimated the one thing she never could understand, my resilience. Months later, I received a letter. Megan, through her attorney, tried to reach out. Apologies, vague excuses, hints at reconciliation. I read the letter once, then set it aside. Forgiveness wasn't mine to grant yet. Closure came in my life, not in her words. I had rebuilt everything she tried to destroy. My story, my reputation, my gym, untouchable. Standing in the gym one evening, I watched the sunset spill across the equipment, golden light reflecting off mirrors. I felt an immense sense of peace. Megan's envy, her lies, her betrayal, they had tested me. But they had also proven something else, that I was stronger than any obstacle, smarter than any deception, and relentless in my pursuit of the truth. I smiled to myself. The world had seen my fall, my struggle, my fight, and now they saw my rise. The ultimate revenge wasn't the court case. It wasn't public exposure. It wasn't even Megan's shame. It was my life reclaimed, flourishing, and untouchable. Sometimes I think about Megan and wonder if she truly understood what she lost, not just a sister, but someone who could have loved her, helped her, been a part of her life. But those thoughts no longer weigh on me. The past is a lesson, not a chain. I am Ashley Carter. I survived betrayal, humiliation, and envy. I rebuilt from the ashes, stronger than ever. And every day, in every life I touch through my gym, I prove that patience, resilience, and truth are the most powerful forms of revenge. Because in the end, revenge isn't about hurting someone else. It's about winning back yourself.